chapter 1. I was out to dinner with my friend. I love my friends who fad diet. Just like if there's a new diet, they're gonna try it. Like I love these friends because if it's new, they're like I gotta try it. And like we were out to dinner with our friends and we're having a great time. Some of our dearest friends, we're laughing, we're telling stories, and it was that time when you go to order, and I've never been through a more difficult ordering process in my life. And, you know what is it about people who diet? They got to tell you. You don't have to ask them if they're dieting. You don't have to ask them if they started Advocare. You don't have to ask them if they do CrossFit. You don't have to they'll tell you, yeah, I CrossFit, I don't know if you know. I mean, like they'll just tell you. And so here we are out to dinner, and the waitress goes, what would you like? And he goes, well, I'm paleo. No one asked. No one cares. Like, no one brought up that you're paleo. But people who do keto or paleo or intermittent fasting or anything else, like it's always like they'll bring it up to you. And, he's like, I'm paleo, so a lot of these things I can't even have. Why are you telling? And so he goes, well, I didn't even know what I can have. And they begin to go back and forth. And she suggests something to me. And he goes, oh, I can't have that. I'm paleo. No one asked you. Like there was something about it that I was like so annoyed. And I'm like, have you been doing this for a while? He goes, no, 2 days. Like, oh my word. He's a freshie. And so here he is just like bantering back and forth. And he finally gets I don't know, whatever paleo people eat. And he finally gets it and orders and it comes and he eats. And we go our separate ways. And 2 days later, I see on his Instagram story a picture of him eating pizza. And I comment back, I thought you were paleo. He goes, I decided it wasn't for me. I think it's so common for even our lives, is I think we have commitment issues. If you're taking notes today, I want to talk about commitment issues. I want to talk about how I think many of us have commitment issues. We make commitments, but we've got issue with the commitment. We got this idea that we want to be something, that we want to do something, that we want this for our lives, but it's difficult to stay the course. I know this because I fad diet all the time. I know this because I do CrossFit. I know this because I'm trying to do things all the time, and I go all in, and then 2 days later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this anymore. I think about it with sports teams. My kids, they look at the TV and they say, Dad, who's winning? I go, well, LSU is winning. He goes, who's the other team? I said, Texas. And he goes, I want LSU to win. Tell me if the other team starts winning. I mean, we do this with sports teams. We'll jump ship once all of a sudden they don't have the right players anymore. We'll do this in relationships all the time. We do this through brands. We'll follow. I'm all Nike, then I'm all Adidas, and then I'm going to be all Under Armour. We do this with brands. We do this with our budgeting. Have you ever set a budget, not stuck with it? Amen. Don't have to raise your hand. You already did. It's exciting to set a budget. No, sorry, I used the wrong words. It's necessary to set a budget. It sucks sticking to it. There's just something about it that's really hard because we've got commitment issues, relationships. We got commitment issues with church all the time. I remember back when Kara and we lived in Portland, and we were, I worked in sales, and she was still a college student. And we'd go to this one church all the time, and we loved the pastor. We thought he was amazing. As a pastor, this offends me that I even did this. We would go late because we didn't like the worship. Don't do that. We would go late because we didn't like the worship. And then whenever someone else was preaching, we'd leave. If you've ever done that to me, I'm going to hit you with a stick of bamboo, just right in the back of the legs. The idea to we'll leave a church, we'll do these different things on a whim because we've got commitment issues. We've got the ability to commit. We've got an issue with the commitment. I want us to learn today from Daniel. Daniel in the Bible, what a wonderful book. Daniel is this you got to read the thing. If you don't read the Bible, let me encourage you to read the book of Daniel. Daniel's this book, this prophet, this idea who he just began to give visions. He began to have favor, not because he was amazing, but because he was committed. He was committed to the things of God. He was committed to a law, even though he was removed from his hometown and he was moved to Babylon. He had this idea that he knew he was going to stay committed to God. His name is God is my judge. Daniel means God is my judge. If you know the book of Daniel, there's a lot of highlight stories in it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel in the lion's den. You've probably seen these on a flannel graph if you grew up in Sunday school. Like that. This book is a heavy hitter book, but it's all based on commitment. It's all based on being determined in the things of God. And Daniel and his friends, they were taken out of Jerusalem in about 605 BC, and they were moved to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. And what they did is they would gather, they took over, they besieged it, and they took over, and they took the ones, the young men who were good looking, who were about 5'10", who were about 178 pounds. It sounds a lot like your pastor. They grabbed them and they would begin to teach them the Babylonian ways. They said, we're going to indoctrinate you to our culture. Doesn't it sound like our world right now? See, as culture shifts, you should stand firm in the convictions of God. Culture's always going to move. I was just at a soccer field not too long ago, and I was standing with some parents, and we were talking about the Bible. And just so you know, my role when I stand at the field is the moment that you tell your job, you're like, I'm in sales, or I'm a teacher. And then they say, what do you do, Kyle? And I go, I'm a pastor. And it either repels or invites. Like, they go, oh. Or they're like, oh, okay. And they ask questions. And the other day, we were talking, and in the midst of the conversation, they said, man, I just wish the church would catch up with the times, would adapt to culture. And typically in those moments, I would kind of just placate. But it was such an egregious moment that I was like, no. No, the church, the Bible is the only thing that never changes. I mean, it is true, it is faithful, it is inerrant. And with our lives, we are no different. If you are a follower of Jesus, your life should follow the things of Jesus and not give in to culture. But how often do I have commitment issues with God? And I want to give into culture. Or I do give into culture. And I want to participate in these things. But the Bible's saying, and Daniel's life looks very different than that. And culture changes, God doesn't. You don't want God to change to you. You want to change to God. There's so much of what we want for our lives. And as we start these 21 days of prayer and fasting, and maybe you don't know much about prayer and fasting, I want to teach at the very end of this a little bit more about it, and to kind of give us a charge and give us a nudge to be able to step into that world and what that is for us. And then the questions we're asking, the things we're talking about is you ever find yourself in that moment where you shouldn't, but you still do? That's that moment where the commitment issue to who God is in your life, and to your commitment to following Him, and your commitment to walking with Him, that like it just kind of walks away. In Daniel chapter 1, verse 8, it says this. It says, but Daniel was determined not to defile himself. I love this language because it says Daniel was determined. Daniel was set. Daniel was committed. Daniel wasn't going to allow moving from Jerusalem to Babylon, moving from freedom to exile, moving from being under the Mosaic law to going under the Babylonian law. He wasn't going to let that defile who he was. You know what the word determined it means? It says it means to having made a firm decision and being resolved not to change. Being determined means having a firm decision. If you're a parent, you know this is hard. There's some times where you ground your kids, where you punish your kids, and then all of a sudden you're annoyed that you punished them. You're actually suffering more because you took things away and you want to go back. I mean, I'm a parent. I get these things. Like my kids got in trouble the other day. I said, go to your room. And then I forgot about them. That was a good moment. I've had some freedom. But I took their Kindles away, and then they were annoying me. And I was like, can you just have them back? Leave me alone. Go play outside. Go play in the street. Go do something fun. We have where we need need to be determined, make a firm decision that God's going to be God in your life, that you're going to follow the things of the Bible, and be determined to receive his grace when you don't. I think that's one of the biggest issues, is we're so determined and so committed to God, and then we sin and we think, man, I can't come back. And he's just probably mad at me. That's never a moment in the Bible. That's never a thing that happens that says God's mad at you and God's disappointed in you. God always loved you. He already forgave you for the things that you will commit and have committed, the sins that have walked in your life, that you be determined. And let's give some context here. Temptation will always be there. See, Daniel and his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you might know who they are from hearing Bible stories. They get moved, and a bunch of other friends, they get moved to Babylon. And what the king does, he does something completely out of context, is he begins to train them up, and he says to them, I'm going to feed you wine and meat, okay? Which to you and I, you're like, this doesn't sound so bad. Like, is this like a Merlot or... Meat pairs well with a Grenache. I mean, it's probably what it is. Yeah, I mean, but in their world, under the Mosaic law that they would be raised in, this Jewish culture, their wine would be diluted 3 to 6 times water to 1 part wine. So it's very diluted. It's not very strong. Where Babylon's known that they did not dilute their wine at all. It was actually the most potent wine in the area. Also, Jewish culture, they didn't eat meat that hadn't been sacrificed to God in a very specific way. In Babylon, their meat not only would be sacrificed incorrectly, but it would be sacrificed to honor and to celebrate and to worship false gods. So all of a sudden, this wine and this food is sitting in front of Daniel, and he's got a really important decision. As culture shifts, as all of a sudden things become legal, as all of a sudden things become available, he looks at his plate and he has a choice. And we all have a choice every single day. Am I going to be committed to God, or am I going to shift with culture? And Daniel stands there and he says, I'm determined. You know what? I'm determined to not defile myself. I'm determined that I'm going to walk out the things of God. I'm determined that I'm going to be set apart. I'm determined that I'm going to be different. I'm determined. And he went against that. He's in this new land. He's given a new name. He's given food by pagans, sacrifice by other gods. See, and you'll always look better living godly. You'll always look better living, and he looks better. His countenance changes. He's stronger than everybody else. It's kind of like this. Listening to a sermon that touches your heart but doesn't change your life is a waste of time. And how often I've listened to teachings and thought, wow, that's so good, and didn't change my life. And how often I've received something, thought, man, I want to apply that to... I think today in this series and what we're walking through, God's applying things to our lives, our hearts, that we need to apply to our life. God's always speaking to your heart. God's always communicating to you. But are you applying it to your life? That's the big question of Daniel. And Daniel, he heard from God, and he applied it to his life, and he was determined. And I think we've got commitment issues. I think there's 2 main areas that we've got commitment issues, that the 2 B's of commitment, okay? We need to be committed to one master. I think it's one of the greatest things we can learn. Committed to one master. Just that one thing. The question that I'd ask you is, who leads your life? Who do you consult with? As we go into a time of prayer and fasting, I don't notice big decisions being made in the Bible without prayer and fasting. I notice big moments in the Bible being made with prayer and fasting. And so, who's leading your life? Who are you consulting? Who are you talking to when you make big decisions? What kind of conversation is happening with you? I get to do a lot of weddings. I get to perform a lot of weddings and be the officiant. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. And I get to stand there, and I get to stand with a couple, and I get to do premarital with my wife. And like it's really hard to mess up a wedding. Like, it's the happiest day in the world. Like, everybody's all dressed up, and everybody's beautiful, and everybody's happy for the most part. I've been to some where one side of the family wasn't happy, and it's awkward. But like for the most part, everybody's happy, and a lot of money's been spent. And so the father-in-law is like, sweet Lord, can we be done with this thing? Just give me the bill. And I stand there, and I always talk about the ring. Not like Lord of the Rings, calm down. I always talk about the ring. Everybody's like, oh, you going to do a Lord of the Rings joke? No. I'm going to talk about the covenant. Calm down. Dang it, that's another Lord of the Rings joke. So here you have this, huh? And I like the commitment that you put when you wear this thing, it hits against the table. You can hear it. You wear it. Other people notice. People notice your ring. They notice these different things. And oh, man, it lasts forever. It goes on, my friend. And it's just beautiful. And I make the same joke at every wedding. And every single wedding, people laugh hysterically. And my wife just puts her head down and thinks, you're such a dad. And I think, whatever. And if I've done a couple weddings or even in this room right now, and I've made this joke, I always say, man, also, it's the smallest set of handcuffs you'll ever see. That's funny. It's funny every single time. My delivery could be bad, and people still laugh. It's brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'll be back next week. Don't forget to, never mind. And I think the biggest thing we forget is we've got commitment issues. The same vows that I made to my wife are the vows that I made to God. That I'm not going to defile, I'm not going to turn my back, I'm not going to walk away, I'm going to be consistent, I'm going to follow, and that I'm only going to have one master, that only one person is going to lead my life. Matthew chapter 6, verse 24 lays it out like this for us. It says, no one can serve two masters. But how often I try to. Like we're fooling ourselves, we're kidding ourselves to think that we can serve more than one master. The master of acceptance, the master of having idols, the master of finances, the master of whatever, your ego. And all of a sudden, all these things begin to determine and follow your life and lead you. But the Bible says that no one. So you're not an exception to the rule. But how often we think that we are. How often we think, well, I can keep this hidden thing. This sin that no one knows about. And I mean, I can serve God and no one can ever find out about it. It might hurt somebody. And we're going to keep this over here. No one. And we've got to realize that we're built to serve. We are built by God. The Bible says at the very beginning is that he would commission us in the garden in Genesis. That he would commission us. That means he wants to go on a mission with us. That means we're built to serve with him and always with him and for him. Like that's what we want to walk with and be with. And we're not fooling anybody to think we can. I think the second B that we need to have, not only do we need to be committed to one master, but we need to be committed to my yes and my no. Oh, my word. This is probably my favorite one. Be committed to my yes. And I love people who say yes and do it. I love people who say no and don't. I think that's one of the greatest qualities that you could ever have. And especially in your relationship with God, do you have the ability to say yes to him and no to the world? Do you have the ability? Have you worked that out in your life? I call it the follow-through ability. Follow-through attributes will be one of your greatest attributes you can ever have. I went bowling not too long ago, and there's two different types of bowlers. Us, and then serious people. Like people who like I went bowling, and a guy walked in with his bag, and I was like, would you bring like a lunch? He's like, no, my ball's in there. To bowl with? I'm wearing my bowling shirt today. I feel like I'm in the Big Lebowski right now. I mean, like here, like he's got his bag, and he had like this wrist guard. Like he rolled it back, and like had a wrist guard, and he's like strapping up. And I was like, listen, man, if I get 120 today, I'm celebrating. And also, if you're bowling, don't eat. That's disgusting. Tell me something grosser than eating while sticking your fingers into these holes that have been used. And they're like, someone told me, no, they clean it. And they're like, listen, they go, that doesn't clean it. That didn't kill anything. That only brought more infestation in. Don't eat pizza at a bowling alley. That's disgusting. Don't be gross. And so here I am. And so I see an opportunity. I'm standing there, and he does this. You ever bowl with somebody, they do this, they do, what'd you do with your foot? He goes, rolling rock. Like, listen, calm down. And he just, I'd never actually seen the rooster on the screen, and he got one, like, all like strike after strike. And I was like, listen, I'm going to bowl with my left hand just so I look less stupid. And so like here, but I realized, like, I can learn from him. So I'm like, hey, can you give me a couple pointers? He goes, thought you'd never ask. And so we're rolling, and I'm like, tell me about this foot thing. He goes, don't worry about the foot. I go, okay. So tell me about my finger placement. He goes, don't worry about your hands. What am I supposed to worry about? Like, help me. He goes, it's all about your follow-through. See, the ball won't go the right direction unless you finish the direction it's supposed to go in. And it's so true for our lives, that our lives won't go in the direction of God unless we follow through with our yes and we follow through with our no's. Unless we follow through with the things that we say we're going to do. The ability to follow through will take you to places that you never thought that you could go. That the moment that you get caught short, the moment that you don't want to. I was just listening to a teaching the other day talking about the hard work in the middle of our lives. And so often on Instagram and social media and lives, we celebrate the end product. But really, we shouldn't celebrate the end product. We should focus and learn on what happened in the middle, what happened in the moments that things were kind of a little hairy and kind of a little gray and didn't think they were going to make it through it. What happened in those moments? That's where you're going to get somewhere in your life. Matthew chapter 5, verse 37 on the Sermon on the Mount says this, just say a simple yes, and I will, or no, and I won't. Anything beyond this is from the evil one. That our yes would be our yes, and our no would be our no. We struggle with this because we don't decide before the decision. We've always got to decide before the decision. It's difficult to have the ability to make a good decision in the midst of a moment, but if you've made the decision before the decision, you'll follow through with the decision. You made the decision, I'm going to eat healthy. You made the decision, I'm going to stop drinking. You made the decision, I'm going to have one drink. You made the decision, I'm going to stop hanging out with those friends. You made the decision, I'm going to go to church every week, no matter what, even when the Seahawks are playing at 10 a.m. Amen? You liars. I mean, you made the decision. Oftentimes, it's just the decision before the decision. Oftentimes, the things that will lead our lives is the decision before the decision. And Daniel didn't wait until the plate of food and the wine was in front of him. He decided early on in his life. He decided so that when he got the plate of food and he got the wine in front of him, he was strong enough to already make that decision because the decision was already made. What is it in your life that you give into over and over again because you haven't made the decision before the decision? Is it regret? Is it a consistent sin? Is it allowing God to lead our lives? See, I think there's something so spiritually available to each and every one of us, but we've made the decision to not give our lives to Him instead of the decision to open our lives to Him. We hold things back. We don't want to walk in that truth. We're just resistant. And I want us to learn a little bit about fasting before we end our time, is like how to fast. Like, how do you even do this? Like, it might be fasting is the greatest thing you could do that you don't do. Like fasting is a relational thing, aspect that you have with God that we don't typically do, that we don't take advantage of. And maybe it's because you don't know how to. Maybe because you don't know enough about it. Maybe because you just don't want to. You can be honest with yourself, like, no, I will not. See, fasting is when you abstain, means that you don't do something and you replace it with God. Oftentimes you see it with food. Every example in the Bible is food related. Now, my caveat for that is God cares more about your heart than anything else. So if you choose social media, if you choose something else, it's totally fine as long as your heart's saying, this is hard. And you replace that time that you would be eating with God. So it's not like you're at work and you got your lunch break and you're like, nope, just working through lunch. No. You missed it. It's stopping and pausing, and maybe comfort for you would be go read your Bible in your car. Go walk around your works campus and pray during that walk, and then return to your desk. It's you replace the time with God. And Jensen Franklin says it this way. There's 3 duties of every Christian are giving, praying, and fasting. And he would talk about this in his book called Fasting as the three chords. That the three duties of every Christian are giving, praying, and fasting. Giving, praying, and fasting. Oftentimes, when we think that things are lacking from our lives, it is oftentimes because we don't give, we don't pray, and we don't fast. We attend, and then we expect to receive, and God's giving, but we're missing out on the other elements of being able to walk with him. So how do we do that? Okay, so 21 days starts tomorrow. Sounds daunting. You're like, great, now my pastor told me I can't eat for the next 21 days. I didn't say that. Calm down, okay? You can do social media. You can do Daniel fast. You can do a couple different options. I'll give those in just a second, okay? So how to fast, some examples. If you're taking notes, some examples just kind of give you. Joshua, he fasted for 40 days. Daniel, he invented the 21-day fast, which is just nuts and fruit and water, okay? So that's all that is. You're going fruits, you're going vegetables, and you're going nuts and water, okay? So that's he did it for 21 days. That's what he did. Paul fasted twice in the New Testament, one time for 3 days and one for 14. So even as you're looking at this, you're saying, oh, wow, in the next 21 days, I can fast for 3 days. I think sometimes we look at this and I'm going to do all 21. I'm not even going to eat. I'm only going to drink water, and I'm going to be on my knees at my office, and every people, yeah, I'm going to be mocked, but you know what? I'm a martyr for God. Like, calm down. Like, you've never done it before. Make it through a day. Skip breakfast and call it fasting. Like just listen to worship music on the way to work and call it fasting. Like let's lower the bar and then raise the bar with it. Okay. So Peter fasted for 3 days. Jesus fasted for 40 days. Jesus fasted for 40 days. No food, nothing. It's not something I would suggest for you. You're not Jesus. Calm down. Okay. You're making big decisions daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. Constantly. Again, I just don't see big decisions without fasting. 3 duties of every Christian. So 3 different types of fasting. Absolute fast, no food or water. Normal fast, these are my words. Normal fast, normal people, no food, only water. And a partial fast, giving up partial food and drink for an extended period of time. What I'm going to do for me and my house, we're going to do a partial fast. That's what Kara and I are going to do. That's the plan. We're going to do a partial fast for all 21 days. Fasting, this is what fasting is. Fasting food is making a conscious decision to remove the thing we need to survive, to see God as the thing we need to survive. So what's fasting? Like, there's not a better sentence than this one, and I didn't write it. Fasting food is making a conscious decision to remove the thing we need to survive. To see God as the thing we need to survive. I think so often we miss out on godly moments because we're missing out on Him being God. We remove His ability to be God by us stepping in. So if we're always eating, we're missing out on the opportunity for Him to be the sustainer. Him to be the one. See, we must fast to work the flesh out of us. We have flesh in us. We have temptations and desires. And may we focus these 21 days on... another line would be, I don't fast because I am holy. I fast because I am unholy. And I need to hear from God. I need to hear from God. You need to hear from God. Fasting is a time that we take every single year to be able to focus that time. So some kind of coaching things, 2 coaching things are these. First one, set your objective. You can do it right now. You can do it when you get home. What's the plan? What's the point? What are you trying to hear from God? Is it purely just a closeness? Is it an answer in something you're looking for? What is it? Declare, or ask for forgiveness, refocus ourselves, just want to invite the presence of God more in our lives, believe God for an answer of specific needs. Okay, for the next 21 days, I'm only going to listen to worship music. I'm only going to eat fruits and nuts. I'm only going to do these things. Don't just starve yourself of something because you want to look holy. Do it for a very specific purpose. Why are you doing this? Set an objective. The second one is decide what type of fast you'll do. You get 2 days into it, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't want a Daniel fast anymore. I hate almonds that aren't dry roasted with a lot of salt on them. You want to make that decision. What do you want to do? Is it social media? Is it the TV? Is it, what is it right now? What can you do? What's realistic for you? I think a great way to fast, my dear friend, he fasts many, many times. He's a pastor in Federal Way, and he'll fast breakfast and lunch, and he'll eat dinner with his family. He doesn't want to miss out on family time. Also, in his words, I don't do well not eating dinner. So if you start getting real grouchy, like may skip breakfast, skip dinner, or skip breakfast and skip lunch, and then eat dinner, so that you're having family time, so that you have a goal set out, so you feel like you have that sustainability. Like that's a great way to do that. And then expect results. I think that's the third thing. Set an objective, decide what type, expect results. Healing, godliness, or an answer. Here's an example for you. Monday, September 9th to Sunday, so just for 7 days, try this. This would be a great goal for you to start on Monday, or maybe even next Monday. 7-day Daniel fast. 7-day social media fast. Fast breakfast and lunch and only eat dinner. And for 7 days, set an objective. What do you want to hear from God? What is it you're looking? Is it a closeness to God? And then you replace that time that you would eat with time with God.